I'll call the meeting to order. Everybody quiet. Yeah, no, it's my, again,
Yeah, you people in the front.
just watch out. All right, first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the last meeting. I entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the minutes.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much. Okay, would like to welcome the Board of Select Board. And I caught myself. So prior to the meeting tonight, I sent a package through the First Selectman's office. I hope you've gotten that. It basically gives a summary of the work that we've done to date. So the first thing that I'd like to ask, is if you have any questions about what you've seen, before we start.
We've barely seen it.
In
We got
fairness,
it this
just
afternoon.
they both worked, so they just saw it. I
45 minutes ago.
carved out the afternoon and went through it.
Yes.
So, I'm happy to say some things, but in fairness, they haven't gotten to really look at
Well,
it.
go ahead, because, I'll tell you this much, that, the questions, the essential questions are the questions that you forwarded to us, which we've acted on each one of those. We do have a question about some of your the marked up version that you forwarded to us, which I'll get to in a few seconds, but, we've acted on a lot of stuff. We're prepared to make a recommendation, for example, for an appointed or a hired town clerk and a tax collector. We're prepared to make a recommendation for a 4-year term for the first selectman, and still keep a 2-year term for the selectman. And part of that is it sort of adds like a check and balance. It's good on the one hand because hopefully it will attract qualified people who want to put their life aside for 4 years and run the town essentially. And then if there's any problem with that person, because there's really no recall for any of these positions. The recall is the election, and so it's kind of balances out when you have a 2-year term for the other select people, because the political parties will speak their mind, or the voters will speak their mind at every 2 years, and then you can give the first select person a hard time. We've talked about gender neutrality. Tim, what do you?
Can we speak to these as you go, or do you want comments afterward?
You know something, I'm ready for people to interrupt me, and we got a member of the peanut gallery who wants to talk, and that's okay. We don't have a section for public comment, but I'll make an exception for you.
Well, I'm just, point of parliamentary procedure, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, geez, don't go there.
Do
I
it.
believe it's a joint meeting, so I believe the selectmen have to call their meeting to order as well.
Oh, okay, call your meeting to order. I'm glad to
Call the
have
meeting to order.
you have a quorum too.
Yeah, Tim, come take this so you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, we, 6:05, we'll call our joint meeting to order.
So those are some of the major points. We've also acted on the request to put alternates on. I think, what is it,
Water Pollution Control
Water
Authority.
pollution, yeah, WPCA, and so, and the Board of the Assessors Appeals. We've taken some action on a lot of things. We are not making a recommendation to go to a town manager form of government, town manager, town council form of government. So those are the high points, but please, go ahead.
Oh, did you want?
Yeah, if you don't mind. So I would just first say thank you. You guys clearly did a tremendous amount of work in a very short time. Clearly spent a lot of time on this. And overall, I'd say you guys did an amazing job. There's so much in this. I would love to, if you guys don't mind, maybe just go through it segment by segment. Kyla and I both kind of worked on it today, but there were just a few areas where I think things maybe had been missed inadvertently because there was a track change versus like a note, or maybe there was a reason why you guys skipped it, and it would be helpful for us to know.
Okay, so let me interrupt you for a second, because I think what you're talking about is you're looking at the copy that Steve prepared, and which is sort of work in progress, and we haven't gotten to a point yet where we need to well, we need to confer on that. We will need to confer on that by the end of this meeting, or start conferring on that. But I think there's some fundamental areas that I want to go over first before we get to that.
Okay, we can do that, and then because I do think there was some probably low-hanging fruit that maybe just, yeah, like I said, just inadvertently kind of missed, like changing, because we're in this room, the Commission on Aging members, because they can't get a quorum, things like that, and then maybe some things that need a deeper conversation, like management, kind of
Yeah, we
governance
didn't understand the
issues.
governance issues.
Yeah, which is a big thing that we've, which is a question that we've had, that I want to talk about, just basically talk about that. Personally, as I look at it, I think it's a question of terminology and drafting. I know it has administrative significance, but I don't know that, other than the fact that it's a question of terminology, whether a person is a director, so long as we agree on what a person is, a director or a department head, and so long as they understand that they're not non-union, I guess, which is part of the
Some are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can go through that in greater detail, because there's some nuance to some of those.
Right, that's why.
And the other thing I wanted to point out, Brian Eastep called me on the way up here that he had finally gotten his comments back to me. It's the reason you didn't get this earlier. I was waiting for Brian.
Yes.
And I said, too late, Brian, but I'll have his comments tomorrow. Not a lot of changes, but one of the points the first selectman brought up was a point he brought up regarding the boards and commissions, and I told him I hadn't touched those yet because I don't think we had finalized our discussions
Right.
on that, so that we needed to talk to the select.
Yeah, so that's a question. Let's talk about that just for a few seconds, about the issue between department heads and directors.
I'd say it's bigger than that, so in that segment, there, again,
Where are
not
we
to your
going?
point, and now on page 26. So in that segment, again, we could have a deeper conversation about the use of the term, as you mentioned, director versus department head. Some people do get hung up and come to us and say, oh, you need, a director here, so it could be helpful. I wouldn't hold up the whole process if this is a sticking point, but what I would say is the fact that when you look at the administrative departments, we don't have solid waste and recycling listed or the building department, so that to me was a bigger thing. And then also within, when you go through the segments, the only one that, there's no description for those, so those were kind of the bigger things. And then if you go on to, I'm trying to find where it is, somewhere in here, it's, still page 26. In segment B, the duties therefore shall be the responsibility of the first select person with the exception of the assessor. That was a segment I felt pretty strongly about, to say those duties should be reassigned by the first selectman, because I have a concern. You could have a first selectman who says, okay, we don't have a director of finance. I'm going to, per the charter, assume those duties, or I'm going to assume the duties of a director of public works, which actually has in fact happened in the past. So if they don't have the right qualifications, a first selectman shouldn't be assuming those duties. So again, it's a small wording change, so hopefully that's not a big one, but it could have a big impact if we don't change it.
Good. Okay.
Well,
Go ahead.
can I just,
Please.
one of the difficulties, because working with the structure of the town, you now have the town clerk, and you'll have the tax collector. I was looking at some other charters as to where they put those positions, and sometimes the tax collector was still in the finance, which may be logical or not, and the town clerk was maybe under, probably report to the selectmen, even though, because you're appointed. The assessor was always appointed by the Board of Finance, I think, which made sense because of the connection with the Board of Finance, knowing what that process was. And I think the other thing we had a big problem was hiring and appointing, people were getting hung up with that.
Yeah, that was one of my big
And-
things for
Right, and how you get rid of somebody in those positions. But the positions, regardless of whether they're appointed or elected, I guess the town clerk, if something happens, Secretary of State's office, but OPM has also notified the tax collector has any issues. And tax collectors have been removed for taking funds inappropriately, and we've had a lot of collectors in that direction. But I think that when you start getting into the department heads, that comes with the ability to have people under you, and in a lot of cases, it's better you're not in the same union that you're also overseeing the people, because that makes it more difficult. So depending on how that structure goes, now when the appointed positions then become I mean, the elected positions become appointed, will they be part of the union or not? I don't know, that's between a union, that would be between the administrative services and the town as to where they fall. I know I had to be taken out, at the time I was there, I had to be taken out of the union and become a department head. But I was overseeing the assessment department, plus I was overseeing the revaluation, plus the personnel. So you had responsibilities as a department head. So I don't know what the rules are on that as to how many responsibilities you have when you become a department head or not. I know the solid waste and the building department were under Public Works.
Which hasn't happened in over a decade in practice. So I
Right,
guess
right.
attorneys could correct me, but the way I read the charter is, it's more to say the following shall be departments, is to protect and ensure that they're there, and that they're kind of standalone departments, they have a structure and a head, which is happening in practice with building and solid waste before I got there, but yet the charter doesn't reflect that. So it feels like we're violating the charter, and to me, it feels like we're opening it up, and if we don't correct that, it would feel wrong. To me, the union issue, while a great point, is a separate issue.
But the
And it's
building
what-
official is.
So hold on,
Yeah.
Steve,
Right.
yeah, I think you're chomping at the
There's a
bit.
couple points I want to make, if I may. And I'm glad we're having this discussion, because it underscores something, Mr. Chairman, I've talked to you about with the timing of the charter. Because we've talked about accelerating the process, because I think there's some feeling that if you're eliminating some of these elected positions, they'd like to do it before the 2025 election cycle, so you don't elect people to another 4-year term. And the substantive, and that's easy, except we need to figure out where they go. So the one difficult issue that we have to resolve, or not difficult issue, but we have to resolve is who appoints the town clerk, where's the town clerk housed, which you were just talking about, and what do we do with the treasurer? Treasurers, you don't need a treasurer. The finance director or an assistant finance director can take on treasurer responsibilities. So you can simply say the treasurer responsibility shall be assigned by the first select person or something like that. So there might be a simple solution to that issue, but the broader issue that you're raising is not something if we think about the timing, can I just talk about the calendar?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
let me see if I can summarize it
Yeah,
before we go
please,
back to you, all
absolutely.
right? So here's the third issue that I want to get, because I appreciate the fact that you're really delving into the nitty-gritty here, but there's two options that we have ahead of us. One is a simpler option, and it's just addressing those matters that are time-sensitive. The changing the elected to the hired, and changing the term of the first selectman. We can deal with just those issues, but it leaves the other issues unfinished. It's easier to deal with those three issues. The second is, we can do, and I appreciate how you're digging into this, because I'm hearing that you want to deal with all the issues at once, which is a good thing, but it's going to take our summer to get it to the voters for November. And we're all for it, if you're all for it, and that leads to Steve, who's going to talk about the timing.
The alternative, yeah. Because if we can get it on the ballot this November, once they give you the report, they have to do another public hearing. So once you vote, let's say you were to vote tonight, let's take the simple approach. Let's say you want to just eliminate the 2 electeds, but we have to figure out what we're going to do with them. That's got to be part of it. You then have to have a public hearing. Then after the public hearing, they would act, send it to you. Under law, you have up to 60 days. We don't have 60 days. Because you need to get this into the Secretary of State's office with a ballot question by the first week in September. And so if you simplify it and simply deal with the 2 electeds, we could probably, with a meeting of the minds, try to come to an understanding of where they would end up. And that's a very simple thing. You still have to have your public hearing. You have to take a final action, get it to the Board of Selectmen. It wouldn't be a significant deliberation, because if we're just eliminating the 2 positions and reassigning them somewhere, they'd probably be able to act on it quickly, and get this done in August so that we can get it on the ballot for November.
Just quickly,
What's
one
that?
question, would those be two separate questions or one?
You could do whatever you want. You're the appointing authority, so
How is your board feeling
Separate.
about?
East Lyme did them all separately, and it allows for things to, that way it doesn't, if people feel like, yeah, I'm okay with the town clerk, but not the tax collector, or I'm okay with those two, but not the 4-year terms. I think it's definitely safer
it's probably safer to separate them.
to separate them.
Can I ask a question? Why is the treasurer not, why are you keeping the treasurer as an elected official? I was talking to
Nobody ever
Brian.
raised it as a
The director-
concern.
They thought the director of finance was, they were busy
Yeah.
enough so that they didn't want to take on any more
It's like
responsibility.
an extra
Right.
check and
He
balance.
literally signs checks.
So that's all it is, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
He gets a small
Because
stipend.
Brian and I were talking about that on the way up. He said, why are you leaving the treasurer in there? And I said, I'd have to ask the commission.
They don't have much power, but they're an extra check and balance for
All right, good.
Well, actually, it was necessary.
There's
So-
no change. So-
No,
You know, the-
But the point I was gonna make is that if we, and you just started raising the issue about the departments
Yeah.
and directors and what you're gonna call it, that's gonna be very hard to resolve all that in the next week.
Well,
Do we
if they
have to, can't we just call these things, we need to have the following departments? Does it matter whether we call them directors or
Again,
department heads or
I'm not
whatever
gonna
else?
I totally understand Sally and other, points about the importance of the timeline we're on. So again, like, I wouldn't get as held up about some of the wording for some of these things. I do feel very strongly about, part of the reason we opened it up is about the alternates and this, but again, I think those are
Those
quick
are
and
simple
easy.
binary questions, so.
I do feel like there's, it makes me concerned opening it and leaving, that we don't even name these other administrative departments that have been there. Again, I don't think it's that hard to add them in. I don't actually think a lot of this is all that hard to do if we buckled down really quickly. And again, some things maybe get left off. Where I got really held up was how you word this on the ballot. And that's where you might say that's where the work comes in and it might be a nightmare, which I'd love to know from you, like trying to make these changes that are very wordy. Do they all have to be their own line? Like, does it get very complicated?
No, you can do an omnibus question, which kind of gives you a bunch of little subparts, or you can do a broad question, do you support the revisions in the charter? And there's two things you can do so the public understands what those changes are. One, you have to publish the changes in a newspaper, so that has to be done. Number two, you have the option under state law to do what they call an explanatory text. And the explanatory text, you usually see them on election day, but with technology, and the town clerk will send the explanatory text out with ballots, the ABs, so that they have to be done for sometime in September, so they can go out with the ABs. But if you have a good explanatory text, you can post it on your website, you can put it in the libraries, you can
People love
distribute.
that.
Yeah,
How
and
come
you-
you didn't tell me?
What's that?
People love that. They're like, how come you didn't tell me? How come you didn't come to my door and read it to me? you know?
Yeah, no, that's the problem.
Exactly
But,
Yeah.
but what I was gonna suggest is the following.
Yeah.
Really depending on, and you guys need to read what we've done here, but if we're going to try to get this done, as I said to the chair and the members last week, I will do everything I can to get it done. I'll consult with Brian, who's the town attorney, to make sure that we have a meeting of the minds. I just feel uncomfortable generally rushing things. And so what I was going to recommend is, if you really want to deal with these elective positions, you can basically bifurcate the process. Have the commission take a final action on the electeds, decide what they're going to do with them. Once you accept their report, or reject their report, but if you accept their report, they're out of business, they're gone. You put it on the ballot. Once they're gone, you can reconstitute them, let's say in September, to finish up all the other stuff. So you don't add much time to it, and instead of meeting twice a month, we talked about this, as I know you guys, the twice a month is very vigorous. If you're gonna just then finish it, they could probably meet once a month and still get this done for, it was originally for March, I think it was supposed to be done, March or April, and just basically, just reconstitute them.
So can it be the same group?
Yeah.
You can do the
You
same
don't have
group if
to
they're willing, if they're willing to
You
sit.
can just say.
Yeah, they go out of business, then you resurrect them in September, and then they finish the rest of the work. So because I know that it was important, I know the town clerk, somebody in this room felt very strongly that we should really try to get rid of those positions before the next election. that would be the way to do it, because that would be then taken care of in this November election. You'll go up or down.
We could still, Steve, we could still have 10 questions that are binary simple, reducing the Commission on Aging, adding the 2 alternates, doing those 2 positions, doing, all the stuff that we've done. The only thing that's complex is fixing all the language in this thing and dealing with the governance issues.
And that has to be
Which-
done before we vote it out.
Right, so
You're
which we
saying
can
you
wait
could
and
fix
do,
that? We could, I mean, even on the departments, if you truly
The one
want
that's
to
breaking
move
the
those,
charter law.
move,
I'd really like to think about it.
move the departments, like the Department of Public Works now has solid waste and the building official under them. So you would take them out of Department of Public Works and then you would make 2 departments there.
Which again is happening in practice. I'm just
But
trying to
then-
match what's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
But there may be financial,
I think we need to think
Here as
about
well.
So-
that stuff, and it will overwhelm
So-
voters too.
Yeah, Dave, go ahead.
I think that the major point here is that if we're going to separate the revisions of the charter, the deadline to get our final report to you is August 21st. That's 60 days before the election. In that time span, we have to have another public hearing, submit to you, get your recommendations back to us so that we can either say, yes, we will make the changes you're requesting, or no, we won't, and send it back for your approval. This is July 11th. August 21st comes up really fast. The more things we try to put into getting things done now, the more complicated that's gonna get.
And I don't want to throw a wrench into it, but can't ignore the public. I mean, they could come out with something else.
Which would allow us on part 2 of this to
Exactly.
deal with it.
Yeah.
Which
as
is
long as
better,
they
because
have the
this is a
opportunity.
lot, and it's a lot for people to absorb, and we haven't figured out how to explain it. If we go through, 5, 6, 7 items tonight, which are simple items, and you guys can expeditiously agree on them, we can meet this timeline and accomplish.
what about having a member of the selectmen at the rest of our meetings? I mean, have
Isn't that
someone.
like
I
allowed,
think
if
we
it was
could do it
seen as
tonight
like,
if we pick the right.
if we had another official joint,
Yeah.
Doesn't really accomplish. No, I think you guys can decide tonight if you
So I
want to.
think
Can we
that what we
discuss
have
the
to,
merits of some of these? Yeah, first
Yeah.
item?
if I may, I think we have to decide this fundamental issue right now.
Yeah.
And it seems like a great idea if we were to just cherry pick either the time-sensitive issues, or not only the time-sensitive issues, but a couple of others. It makes the process a lot, and agree to reconstitute us after, after November. It makes it a lot easier. It's easy to sell, I think it's easy to sell that to the public too. Say, listen, we got these things that if we don't do them this year, they're not gonna take effect till 2030. And if we don't do them, it makes absolutely no sense. So let's put it out there now, and then we're going to get back together and deal with a lot of the other, the more, can't say, I'm thinking of the right word, esoteric, the more nitty-gritty stuff, and,
before we go into the details of it, just since we have 2 members of the board, and just 2 members of the Board of Finance here, and maybe from
Or
your
one.
expertise.
One in my
I think,
husband.
well,
Board of Finance,
we do it.
Oh, Lynn, that's right, I forgot.
You know.
I've been
Like, how
fired.
much of an additional financial expense will it be to do it twice?
Yeah.
You're gonna be doing it in general elections, so it won't add anything to the general election.
And we'll be
Expense.
printing less.
You'll,
We're gonna be expensive
well,
legal ads.
your newspaper publication for the minor changes that we would do this year would be minimal.
Okay.
Because if, next year, there's enough changes in this charter, you're probably gonna have to
Print the whole
publish the whole charter.
Yeah.
And so it'll be a marginal increase. The other expense will be, the explanatory text will be very simple this year. So again, there won't be a huge expense there. The town clerk works on that. I usually work with the town clerk on it. This one, you probably don't even need a lawyer to help with these. If you're just dealing with the elimination of the 2 positions and what you're gonna do with the positions, I don't think it will have huge impact. In terms of the role I played, you are going through next March anyhow, March, April, May anyhow. We're gonna be, it's the same timing, so we're not adding more timing. And they'll probably have a month off between the time they get the report in and the time they get reconstituted in September. So So I get a month off too, in terms of the time we would be spending. But I think you need to spend time, because your point is a point well taken. I think I told them, I don't think, because I did not give my little spiel to the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board, if it passes. But one of the things I talk about is you don't want to have a charter that's obsolete, and you don't want to have a charter that you ignore. And a lot of towns do it. So what we do very often, we're doing a little bit on one of your boards. One of your boards, the town meeting or created an ordinance that changed the composition of the board. Not really the way to do it, but we're going to reverse engineer to do it right, to do it right. And so I think what they really need to do in the fall, when they look at this, is to sit with you, and I view this as a mediated process, because ultimately the appointing authority has to approve the work the commission does. And so we need to know what does the structure look like, and it could be very simple. We could simplify the charter to say, these are the functions, these are the administrative functions of the government. But then you have to be prepared, if you strip this down, to pass ordinances to create the structure of your departments. You could also do it through your budget. You know, I could talk to Jeff or Brian and go through that to understand your process a little bit more. But as long as you have the functions laid out, you could then put the meat on the bone in real time, unless there's something that you really think needs to be constitutional. You know, in some communities, it may not be true here, personnel or civil service or something like that, you want to have locked in, because you don't want people messing around with the integrity of those types of processes. But I don't know the town well enough to say what those things would be, but that's the kind of thing you need to think about, and I just don't think we have time to get that done.
That's what takes time, yeah.
Yeah, to get that done. So the real issue is, can we get done, can we agree that the two elected positions, but then we have to decide where they're gonna go. That's the only decision you have to make, is where will they
I
go?
think, and to go through some of the other big ones that might be easy.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to be able to get the alternates, fix that commission. We
Might be able to fix those.
regularly violate something in the Board of Finance related to that 3 years of no expenditures in CapEx, we need to fix that. Which we didn't get to, it's page 35, I think. But there's like some simple yes and no questions that I think should be easy. We might be able to get through 10 of them tonight
Yeah.
and knock them off, and then just be able to go through the charter kind of word by word and fix what's broken and conform things to reality. In the next round, and we explain to people, this is a big undertaking, and we're breaking it up for your benefit too.
No, I think that makes sense, because we were originally told that it couldn't be broken up. And
Well,
if we
yeah.
dissolved it, that's it. And you think of all the time, I mean, it took us 5 years to do this, so we didn't really want to start again. But if that's true, if
Yeah.
we can just take a gap.
I actually looked at the law the other day, is that you can't adopt a resolution initiating an action until the commission appointed has been terminated, and this commission will terminate the moment you approve their report. So once you approve a report, they're gone, even though the ballot question will be out there, they can be reconstituted in September, August, September, whatever.
So then we just have to formally at our meeting reconstitute.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
And if we don't get, a satisfactory result because either we didn't educate well enough or whatever it is, it'd be like the parking ordinance, third time's a charm, second time's a charm. But at least it gives us a second crack.
But what
at
I
some
would
stuff.
do, though, and I think you're making a good point, is keep them simple.
Yeah,
Let's just do
very
the
simple,
simple,
just binary,
kind of binary EA and A
Yep,
kind of
yep.
things.
no, not much verbiage, easy to explain.
I know Ben had wanted to say something.
Well, yeah, I wanted to just weigh in on a couple of and again, I have not had a chance to look at this, because I just got it, which illustrates one of my points, but, so I'm new to this, the whole form of government, and new to working with the charter and with the Board of Selectmen, and I'm still getting my feet wet and learning how the levers are pulled and so forth. Excuse me. With a 3-member board, obviously the first select person has a lot of power, a lot of authority, and with it comes a lot of responsibility. And we're there to support her or them, but also act as a check, I think, on their authority. I think that by moving the first select person to a 4-year term and having the two other selectmen as 2-year terms, I'm just not sure what the unintended consequences may be of having less of a check as opposed to more of a check on that.
It's the same trick.
Well, so I'm wondering if you've considered a larger board of selectmen, 5-member perhaps.
We did, and we
We have,
declined
we-
to do it.
We
I
declined.
think, you know, again, I'm new to this, but there are very, the number of people that have sat in my position that are a finite number in the town, and none present tonight. So to share my experience, there's no caucusing between a 3-member board when we're from different parties, 0 caucusing. I think a larger board would allow for some,
Then just to go
Oh,
we
there are-
could caucus, we choose not to. So I could choose to caucus with either of you. My first term, I think, it was kind of a stipulation, but I caucused with June, because the Democrats endorsed me when I was unaffiliated. So I could choose to caucus with either of you.
Well, either
but we
way,
choose
we're not.
to.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it wouldn't make a difference for the board number. You could
Well,
choose
there
to
would be-
caucus now or not.
we could choose to caucus.
No, because you're different parties.
we can't,
Well, that's
but
what-
because she's an independent, she could caucus with me or
Unaffiliated.
caucus with you. Oh, yeah,
Unaffiliated.
unaffiliated.
Yeah, but it's not my choice.
Yeah, so you're.
It wouldn't be anyway.
So,
But it
no, but
wouldn't
I'm
be,
saying
yeah.
if there were 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats, at least the 2 Democrats could caucus.
I think, well,
Like, we don't on the Board of Finance.
Yeah.
And
Even though there's
no
some-
other board.
Well,
that
all
I
I'm
sit
saying
on.
is
never
that
did
there's,
on the Board of
that there's,
Yeah.
you know,
I haven't found it to be a hindrance to
Caucusing
me
is just
in
a
the
way to
past
hide things
5
from the
years,
public.
but, you know,
I think caucusing is just a way to hide things from the public. It's a legal
That's kind of the
loophole.
way I
The
feel
point
like
is
we
to be
need to be
public.
transparent, so caucusing.
well, I agree
just-
with that 100%, but I think that I don't know, like I say, I'm new to this, I'm learning,
Well, the
I'm
reason-
learning my way,
I
but,
think to go over the reason, because we talked about this a lot, about extending the first select person to 4 years, is because it's a commitment, and.
I understand
And
that.
a
I
lot of
respect it.
people aren't gonna leave a job to take the position, and you want the most qualified person. We talked about the town manager, and town managers are really hard to get, and you have to really pay them to get them. And I think right now, financially, we're tight on this, and the selectmen have been working well in Stonington. We've been fairly fortunate the last several select people, shouldn't say, but there have been difficulties. But having the 2-year terms means that if the first select person was not doing things the way they should be doing or kind of going off, the other 2 could be elected from the same part,
Could.
different party. So you could have, in fact, 2 Democrats and an independent or an affiliated or whatever the mix is, as long as it's a mix. So that was sort of our cushion to keeping the first select person in line, if you did that 2-year period. And yet you had someone in there that could continue over at least a 4-year period. Because as you know, coming in the first year or so, it's a learning
oh,
process.
no, I fully understand the idea of the first select person having a 4-year term, and
One-
I
Then at
support
first, when I
that.
read the 2 thing, I was like, huh, but then, as Marcia just explained it when I was reading it, I actually do think it's a really smart move. I wish I had thought of it, because it provides a check and balance. So yeah, if you happen to have, just say like let's say Republican or something on you, first selectman, and you really don't like the direction they're going, then you have a chance next cycle to vote in 2 Democrat board members who are gonna outweigh that person all the time. So it does seem, right, like a safety
Yeah, it's a heavy,
mechanism.
I think it's a heavy lift to sell that to the public that we're in elections.
So, but Ben, the other side of that is, think of why this town, when it does work, why it works so well, because there's only 3 of you.
Yeah.
Okay, and
That's
that's a big benefit. Where you look to other towns, our neighbor across the river here, they go through this, not only, but you know why it's Westerly? It's because they have 5 members on the council and a town manager. And I remember, I was a kid, and my father was on the Charter Revision Commission and in the council when they went from just a straight, sort of like this, town council mayor form of government to first selectman. For the first 10, 15 years, they were going through managers like it was incredible. and this, they're having some problems now, although you don't hear about it so much. It's a problem. That's a problem. This is why you guys work so well together, and thankfully, the three of you work better than most have in the past history that I've seen anyways.
Yeah, I do a lot of work for a lot of municipalities, and I definitely like the three. I've seen so many
The bigger it gets, the worse it
managers,
gets.
mayors.
And part of
yeah.
the issue that we were looking at is that first select person, I mean, our town has grown, the budget's grown, that you are now the manager of an $80 million enterprise. It requires more than somebody who's getting elected every 2 years. Because you spend the first year, if you're an incumbent, managing things, and the second year, now you're starting to fundraise to get reelected. So some of your time is taken away from the management of the town. We can't recall an elected official, state statute prevents that. Having two others.
Supreme Court,
Right.
yeah.
I did
Having,
ask you guys to think about that, so.
having two select persons who are elected to 2-year terms almost acts like the ability to recall an elected official, which is why we wanted to do the 4 and the 2.
No, I hope you're right. I haven't had enough time to try to think of all the
But my strong recommendation on that, and I don't know, we haven't talked, I wasn't here for your discussions, is if we're gonna bifurcate, do simple issues this time. And I think when you're talking about 2-year term, 4-year term, that's a more politically difficult issue, and I would hold that to the bigger charter review is my general recommendation.
If you guys are doing this, again, you guys can disagree with me 100%. I would want to see that in there. I would have a hard time supporting taking out 90% of what we, ask the commission to look at. I'd say the things, those are the town clerk, the tax collector, and the term felt strongly about. And again, I don't want to predict the
So you
future,
wanna
but
do
I'm
that.
concerned about our pool of candidates if we do not change this to a 4-year term and people start thinking, this is a potential career path for me, that I can become first selectman, I could run for this, and they start thinking about it versus putting this off. I have concerns.
So you would want to see that on the ballot this year, okay.
And the reason is because if you don't see it on the ballot this year, it doesn't take effect till 2028.
That is correct, that is correct, all right, so.
I'm not saying that.
Can I comment on one other item that you've been discussing?
Please, please.
Again, I really don't know the difference, we've got 2 attorneys here, good thing, the difference between the director and the department head. My only concern as a layperson and not knowing what the legal consequences are is particularly with land use departments, planning department. My understanding is always that the director of planning really has a certain responsibility to the planning commission, the planning and zoning commission, as far as policy goes, and has a certain independence from the administration. And I would like to see that continue.
Can I just say this, because I know Steve is going to say something too, probably more educated than myself, but now I got myself off track, but I can tell you that the issues that you're talking about will take quite a bit of thought and time to delve into, which is why we should which is another argument for bifurcating this process.
Yeah, no,
Because-
we know that, but we also
Well,
know
I
we don't understand it, so.
I
don't
would
understand
disagree
it
with
either.
that. 'Cause I
And well,
think-
that's what I was gonna say, is that I don't understand your government well enough. What you call it is not critical unless there's some collective bargaining agreement that, I don't know if your department heads have, there's an administrative union or not.
Yes.
But there is.
But only applies to certain ones.
So we'd have to look at that and see how that fits. But I have some communities that call their department head chiefs, department chiefs. They're called directors, they're called department heads, they're called a number of different things. So it makes no difference in the concept of a director of planning and zoning is a department head. And depending on the structure of your government, certainly has a role to play with the planning and zoning body, but they're still members of the administration. So the you have a chief executive in this town as the first selectman, a woman, or person, and in other places, the mayor, and there's gotta be an accountability structure, that's why you have a government. And so they're not truly independent, they have functions that are statutory, that the mayors should respect, and the select person should respect, but they're still part of the government structure. So what you call it, I don't think is a big deal, you
But we
decide
don't need
what
to
you
get
wanna
bogged
do.
down on it if we're not gonna.
But I think that is a longer discussion.
Right, and I think that what Steve said earlier really rang with me, was that it's a mediative process. And so mediation is something where two sides come and discuss their differences, and you try to bring them together. And that takes a little bit of time. It's a great process. There are some things on here which I think we might be able to agree on, the certain time-sensitive issues, and maybe a couple of others, but let's leave those other bigger, more complex things that take a lot more thought till next year.
I don't know if it's in a charter, but I was gonna say, I'd like to see kind of, I don't know if it's called a flow chart, but.
Of how it works.
Of how it works at some point.
Yeah.
How everything works. Here's the chief executive officer, who's under that
Well, that's in our
officer.
budget.
There is,
We have that in the budget,
Yeah,
book.
there-
But
there
it
is a flow
doesn't
chart.
reflect what's
But
in the
no,
charter.
but to reflect it with the
Yeah.
charter, so it
but
matches.
you know something, part of another problem is, there is an education process, educating the public about this, and that's gonna take some time too. If we pick 3 or 4 issues, it's not gonna be difficult to educate the public. And also, you say, listen, we know there are some other issues here, and we're gonna work on them. These are something that need our attention right now, because they're so important, and if we don't deal with them right now, they lose their relevance. Can I, Tim, you had something to say?
Yeah, just real quick, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to bog anything down. The discussion you're having right now, my dad was around, I was around for why these roles were renamed, and it was all due to personnel issues. So it was not, the charter was ignored, the selectmen at the time were ignoring everything and just trying to get personnel issues worked out, and then things happened, and then people either moved or didn't move or that. But so we're kind of dealing with a legacy problem that was back from years ago, and it's not reflective of what it really probably should be.
Thank you. It just makes me uncomfortable that we're not following it, but at the same time, I'm not gonna change.
There's so much in here we're not following.
Yeah, if
There's-
you're gonna
yeah.
get caught up in what
Yeah,
we're not following,
yeah.
you're gonna be here
There's
for 20
not
years.
a ton. I think we're doing pretty good.
No, there's stuff in here that I know we're not doing for certain
Yeah.
No,
things that for commissions I sit on, we're not doing.
And I strongly recommend, not in the next week or 2 or 3, but you need to reverse engineer to make sure your charter reflects the world you're living in, or get your world changed to what the charter says. So I think at this point, if your structure is, if you're comfortable with your structure, then you reverse engineer the charter, or give enough flexibility in the
That's
what
charter
you've done, isn't
to
it?
allow you to do.
I inherited this. I didn't, for the most part, change. I made one kind of change that was, needed and the town attorney approved of, but most of it's just inherited, and that's why we wanted to open it to, just be sure we're, doing that correctly, and to allow the flexibility for, if it's 5 years from now, someone else is here, and there might be new technology, new people, new situations, that, management has some flexibility for how it should flow and work and that kind of thing. But again, it's not, it's not so time sensitive that we should, derail something that's really important that, Sally and others have brought up. So I'd be comfortable doing the process that you guys are talking about, as long as we can confirm, I think, a few sticking points maybe for what needs to go in there.
You mean
But
it's-
So
I
what are
would-
those issues?
No,
Why don't
I
we-
agree.
I can tell you what I think, and we can all do the same thing. I think there's simple things in here, we can, simply posed questions that we can knock out quite a few things here.
So let's
So
start,
I would
let's start
say
with
it's
the,
town
Can
clerk.
we start at the beginning of the document just so we could go through it? Like, I won't
Well-
go through, but like,
Yeah, but that will,
I don't think we need to
Take us-
get that far, I mean, to
Yeah.
me,
it's super quick. Like, I just literally wanna like,
okay.
Because like one thing that we just haven't talked about that I do think is important, and Steve, you could tell us if there's a way to simply do it, but I do feel like we need to somehow define the appointment process. I think we risk everything failing in this if
With
we
that
don't
word.
define what appointment is, because some people understandably have concerns that it's how our board, just appoints people versus what actually happens in practice, which is a professional hiring experience for these people.
So my understanding of the question that you're asking is you are concerned about how the town clerk and the tax collector would get hired. It's not a political appointment. That's, and so I
It's
just
all the
wanted.
directors.
Yeah.
And then it further relates to how the rest of the charter talks about who appoints who, and I understand there's a legal, probably state statute reason why Board of Finance or Board of Selectmen officially appoint, but I think you need to explain, there's a professional hiring process behind those appointments of
Would-
full-time
Do we have to
positions.
call them appointments?
I think you do, right?
No,
No?
I think we do, call whatever
The
we
general
want.
statute says you either appoint or you elect.
Yes, that's what it was,
What, for directors?
for any staff.
Positions, if you go into the collector or the assessor's statutes, it says you appoint or elect, and I would assume it does that with the others.
Are we talking about a broader thing than just those two?
That's what I'm trying to
That's
narrow
what I'm trying to
down.
figure out.
Because all
If you-
all the directors say
All the
appointed.
directors say, so it says, other than
Give me the
the
section if you don't
Um,
It's
mind.
here. It's,
20.
Seven.
It's, page 26, section
26.
B.
Because I think, again, it could, the town, in my mind, the town clerk and tax collector, well, maybe different, but all the other, you see all the other department directors, they say who, who appoints them.
Well, they all go through the personnel department, which is
Exactly.
administrative services, so that's the one thing that is uniform.
But it doesn't say that.
And then it goes out to whatever appointing board it is.
Yeah.
Well, can't we just say that all of these people undergo a formal hiring process led by the Director of Administrative
that's what I put
Services,
in my
and
note.
then their hiring must be agreed upon by the Board of Selectmen or
Yeah,
something along those
formal
lines?
approval appointment.
Because that's what actually happens.
Well,
Yeah.
not all of them, I was hired again through the board of.
No, but I mean, that for the ones that are in here.
Steve?
I'm trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Because
The assessment
department
department's
heads-
not a director, should be appointed.
Are you saying they kind of go through a civil service type?
But I go through, yes.
So what we do see
Well,
in practice and what we'd like to see happen with the town clerk and tax collector is your Director of Administrative Services, just like any other staff member, puts out an ad. We do a formal recruitment process, we create a interview panel, and just like a normal professional hiring experience happens. But then there's an official vote by either the Board of Selectmen or Board of Finance, depending on who is stipulated with that authority, to then make it official.
So basically you would have hiring process in effect, and then it would be approval. So not appointment, it would be approval.
But in the charter now, it says, appointment for pretty much, I think, every director.
All right, so
And
they-
it
Yeah, there's an
specifies
appointment for
who.
committees. Committees get appointed.
That's different.
Which is different.
Boards and commissions, so we're
Right,
not
so
gonna
I
worry
think
about that
they-
right now.
Right, but I think they want to keep it separate, that there's that process and there's actually.
And we've already heard a lot of concerns from residents who don't understandably understand that, so they think we're just all of a sudden giving the
They
Board
think
of
it's a political
Selectmen.
job now.
Yeah, like, we're just, gonna pick our friend to become the tax collector, when the whole point is that there's a professional hiring that undergoes.
Do you think the tax collector should fall under the Board of
Finance is
Finance?
fine. I think that's fine.
Well,
Again, it's almost a formality.
It is a
but-
formality, but it also,
So we're looking at section 8-1B.
Yes,
And so you want to make it clear that these positions would go through a hiring process.
as does, all the other full-time town staff members. Because they're full-time town staff members, they're not elected officials anymore. So to understand that the appointment process still requires
are they gonna be directors?
they're the town clerk, their titles aren't gonna change, they are who they are, but they're, again, department heads,
Yeah,
as they
okay.
are now.
so you want it to be added as a department head.
Yeah, but if you're
Well, we're
not
not dealing
doing
with
that
that now.
segment now, then that's
No,
fine.
We just need to deal with this for this particular.
But we still have to put them somewhere.
So what you're trying to do is you're trying to isolate actually, we're thinking about the broad picture, but if we narrow it down for this cycle, we're talking about really two positions, and town clerk and tax collector, and we want to assure in the charter that they are hired through a professional hiring process.
I think you could add a definition of appointment in section 8. So whether it's a footnote or.
It's more like it's ratified, it's like a ratified
Yes.
decision.
But yes, right, your point, but the point is, I think it would be helpful, since you're already having to define what appointment means. It's already in section 8-1B, so it could just be a line that's added in there, like the appointment process, is a, not formality to find the right legal term, but the appointment process, is the final step after undergoing a professional hiring, led by the Director of Administrative Services.
Still hit the word appointment.
No, we don't have to use the word appointment.
Yeah.
I think
We
to
can figure out-
Marcia's point, we just, and you guys can check that, but there was a reason our town attorney had told us you had to keep appointment because they're either elected or appointed per some statute. Like, who has the
So
authority?
historically, you have, quote, appointed these department heads, let's call them,
After the,
but they've
after,
gone through the equivalent of a civil service or hiring
Yeah.
process.
everybody undergoes a hiring process, and then either the
Now.
Board of Selectmen,
Now,
No.
I was gonna ask you, because
Now.
historically, I would assume these were political appointees.
the Director of like Planning.
That's what I'm
and-
trying.
That is so
that-
terrible, yeah.
The parlance that I understand.
yes.
Yeah,
Department heads can be politically appointed.
I want to avoid that.
And what you're saying is you want, by charter, to make it clear
That it's perfect.
that these directors, department heads, whatever you're gonna
Are
call them,
hired
we're not
based
gonna
on
change it now,
qualifications.
that we have a process and that you, but it's subject to the approval of the Board of Selectmen in the case of administrative services, finance, planning, public works, human services, we'll talk about the other two positions in a moment, and the Board of Finance gets the assessor. Is that the way it works?
They got me, they sure did.
All right, I was looking at you when I said that, but that's the concept.
Yeah.
But it might help you to give the tax collector to the Board of Finance, because the perception out there is that we're going backwards, back to political appointees,
Well, that's why I think
which
you
is
have to
exactly what we're
define
not
it.
doing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
But I think even for the town clerk, like, you have to define it.
yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
But we have to take it out of 6-2, which are the elected
Right.
officials.
Yeah. Mhm.
So it's gotta come out of there, and
So
then
you'd
it's
add
gotta
it to
move somewhere,
8-1.
you know, have its own.
And yeah, I think you'd add them as an administrative department then.
We either put the collector, we either have to put the collector in as a department head, or you gotta keep her under finance, the director of finance. So you kinda have to let us know where you want her to, want them to.
Yeah, where are they gonna go? Who are they gonna report to?
Well, they don't right now, obviously, they report to
Right,
voters.
and now they're gonna have to.
Probably
Wouldn't
better,
there
safer
be-
to be finance, because there's no, there should be no political anything to do with
So the Board of Finance
collection.
would make,
You want the
would be,
town clerk there too?
Would it be the
No,
Board of
that's not-
Finance, or would it be the Director of the Finance Director?
oh,
That the tax.
which is under the
collector-
Board of Selectmen, okay,
Right.
Yeah.
right. So the tax,
Well, he's got a lot to do
But that's
already.
usually where the collectors go.
that's where they tend to
Yeah,
go.
and that's where it
Is
fits
he
in
okay
the
with that? Is
budget.
he gonna, I mean, he's,
Yeah, I mean,
already has-
they shouldn't really be, like, a lot of, like,
oh, that he already does it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, hopefully with the new state legislation, the COGS will start doing some
And the
tax
town
collection.
clerks,
you
I'm
know.
not sure where the town clerk fell, because I'd have to, there are charters, there's a lot of town clerks that are appointed, and I'm not sure where they fall either, whether if they go to the selectman or the
Do you
town
know
manager.
I
So-
don't, but
we could look that up, I'm sure
I can
you
check
guys
that out,
could,
yeah.
for your next meeting.
But it's, that is more of a, but again, for my purposes, for the immediate term, from the hiring perspective, they'd be hired by the Board of, but they'd be hired by the administrative process,
Yeah.
Yeah.
approved by the Board of Selectmen. All right.
So, yeah, it's a question of drafting, I think, right
Yeah.
now.
Right.
And if it could encompass all of B, because to Tim's point, that's what I'm concerned about. Like, right now, things might be working well, depending on who you ask, but, I think they're working well. I think there's a fear, you never know who could come in, read this, and say, nope, I get to appoint them, and I'm gonna appoint so-and-so to be this person. So I think it is a.
We need to say hiring
We need to
process.
make it really clear for all of those
All right.
directors.
To make it palatable to the voters, right?
And just, yeah, and to be sure,
Well, not to go backwards.
not to go backwards
not
to
to go backwards.
the days of favor.
And basically what you're doing is you're institutionalizing in your constitution that which you are doing already.
Yes.
With that, which you are currently doing.
currently.
But by currently doing it, you're locking it in for at least
The
the
next
foreseeable,
charter.
you know, until there's another charter revision and you decide you wanna go back to town
And
hall.
then you also go to a job
Political science
description,
guy
you go
got
to a
that,
job
right.
description of the town clerk and a job description of the tax collector, and the qualifications for that position.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, that, I think,
When
I mean,
does
that's the
that
point, you want somebody who's qualified, right? That's why I'm
Job
fighting so hard for
description,
this, yeah.
Well, with a resume and experience.
Yeah.
Versus
I
a
mean, they
resume.
already an
And
address
they'll
and
ask
stone
questions,
date.
other town clerks will ask questions. I mean, that's how the process has been for collectors and assessors. And I'm sure town clerks, they'll have their peers come in, they'll ask them pertinent questions about voting, about registrar, about all those things that relate to town clerks, and the same with the tax collector, about how do you charge interest, how, are you certified? There's a lot of,
Yeah, I mean, we do this all the
We do that
time.
with
I mean, when we
Public Works.
replace, Jennifer, you, and, we
Well,
have we have a
Director of
panel, and we
WPCA,
have previous
oh,
Yeah,
people,
we
like.
brought in people from other towns,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
to help, and, yeah.
I think we just need to reassure voters that we are hiring based on qualifications and not personal relationships.
And I would say to expedite it, that the tax collector and the town clerk, thank you. I had TC for both of them, so I was confused. The tax collector and the town clerk shall be assigned, administratively, their functions administratively through the Board of Selectmen, so you don't have to make a final decision on where they land in the charter, or we can make it next year when
When
we're
you
cleaning it up
do- yeah,
further.
When you're
But
doing
I'm
the
trying
whole
to get,
administrative.
trying to get us to a
Yep.
place where I can come up with the question, the appropriate question. Is that all right?
I do just want to say one thing, though, that, so if, and I get that they're either, in the statutes, either appointed or elected, which is fine, but how is it then that there are towns that they are hired? Like in this February 2023 survey I participated in, there were 19, one of the questions was, are you hired, appointed, or elected? 19 were hired, 46 were appointed, and the rest were elected. And the question that was just on East Lyme's ballot was, shall the town charter be amended so that the offices of town clerk and tax collector become hired administrative officers, rather than elected officers?
Can we just get rid of the word appointed and
That's what-
replace
can
it
you-
with
yeah.
hired?
That's what I was,
Yeah.
So if towns can
that's the
do it,
direction I'm gonna take with it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
We
if
just-
towns
we
do
put
it, why
hired.
can't we?
Yeah, because I think we're finding some towns just don't ignore some state statutes, but if we can confirm that we're allowed to use the word hired over appointed, that is our goal.
I'll look at the statute. Hartford, the city council, the common council hires or appoints. I'd have to look at I've done their charter 4 times, and I can't recall. The city and town clerk is.
Yeah,
Well, Joe, I mean, technically, if we're gonna be ratifying the hiring.
It's an appointment.
then it'd be the same
Good.
thing.
Yeah.
It's still, at the very end of the game, it's a political process,
Yeah.
even though they have.
It's an approval
Yeah.
that's gone through,
but it's harder to say, oh, like, you 7 people all recommended this person based on their qualifications, but I'm gonna bring in my cousin
Yeah.
Dana to
Right.
become the
But-
town clerk.
Yeah.
Well, and you'll
but at
get bounced
least-
out of office.
At least it's an educated process as opposed to a boss
Yeah.
who's hired,
Okay, so that's-
as opposed to Tammany Hall.
so I have 4 issues now. 4-year term for the first selectman, town clerk and tax collector, 2 separate issues, I'm laying it out. And this 8-1B issue,
Yeah, the
okay?
defining of.
So those are the 4 issues I have thus far. What
WPCA,
else?
right?
So then,
What's that?
WPCA
And
alternate.
WPCA.
Yeah, can we
The
get
alternates for
the 2 alternates for
Water Pollution Control
WPCA?
Authority,
sorry,
Because that's an easy yes or no.
Right.
yes.
Reduction of the Commission on
Easy,
Aging
yes.
number,
Yeah.
Danielle, to
Yeah.
what?
what?
The reduction on the Commission on Aging to
I
what?
have it written, so hang on, I'm just going through in order.
There's also a reason.
Can we,
As long
can
as
we
they're
lump,
adopted.
there are several boards that you wanted alternates on, can we lump those all together?
That we want what?
Can we lump those all together? There are several boards that want there's a request.
Inland Wetlands is reducing their, we're reducing it because
Yeah, it's already been,
it's been done by town meeting, which, but we should
Yeah.
probably fix that, so it's inland
Aging,
wetlands.
aging, we went to 7 and 3 alternates.
Yep.
Is that what you're,
yeah, so for inland and wetlands, we wanted to change from 7 to 5 with the 2 alternates. And then, as Marcia said, aging, we wanted, instead of 12 members, 7 with 3 alternates. And then WPCA just adding 2 alternates.
in the building code?
Oh,
Board
and
of
sorry,
Appeals
Shellfish
was
Commission
two.
also was adding 2 alternates. Again, that was something that had been approved, and
Approved what,
And the
the
Board of
town meeting?
I
Assessment
think in an
Appeals was
ordinance
another
or
one.
something, or they, one of them, like, they
They're
were
all
an actual
elected.
ordinance, and they got approved.
I think you add alternates to.
Technically, it's a
You can do that, you can add them, you can do
Just like
appointed,
catching a lot
I mean,
of
or you
things,
can add them as electeds and That's a separate
On the Board of
consideration
Appeals,
for,
there's two
Just
alternates.
the
political
top
party
three vote getters are the
consideration,
real
yeah.
ones and the alternates
Yeah.
are the top.
so you can go either way on that, but,
Daniel,
We can't even get people to
Building
be
Code
run
Board
for
of
election.
Appeals, there were two alternates, 7-15.
I only have, okay, that one I only have 5. Sorry, let me see, maybe I missed it.
5 members.
Someone had asked for 2.
Sorry, I might have just missed it. Charlie, did you see it?
Tim
Yeah,
over
we
there
also have
wants
to figure out
to,
how many questions we wanna have here, kids. That's the
So
other,
you got.
But I, like, can you,
can make that one
can you
question.
do
We
like
can make
a,
one.
can you do like a broader question of like changes to the makeup of these following boards and then it just be one
I
question?
can do that, yeah.
Because those aren't controversial.
As long as we keep it
Yeah.
to non-controversial.
Yeah.
Non-controversial ones.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that.
Get carried away, then.
So we're looking at 7-7, just to clarify. 7-14,
Yep,
7-17, Water Pollution Control
Yeah.
Authority,
7-18,
7-18. That's it.
yeah. Marcia, I don't see anything about the 7-15.
The other thing I was gonna recommend, but I don't think we should do it now, is the town attorney is under boards and commissions. They really should be on the department side.
that's weird.
Yeah, and that's a simple thing, but the town attorney is under boards and commissions at 7-20. I thought that was odd. Brian said, oh, I'm glad you caught that. But I don't know if we wanna fix that right now, or we can wait if we're coming back and fix it.
Yeah, I would do that under general.
I wanna keep
governance,
this
so-
pretty simple.
Yeah.
I know Jim had brought this up yesterday, you guys could reread it, I didn't see anything about 3 years in here for capital.
Page 35, section, hold on.
I don't have page 35.
Oh, that
So
might be the way my iPad thing did
She
it.
said page.
Oh, I'm sorry, 36, section G. Danielle, it says, it goes on about,
36 months,
yeah,
okay, yep,
and we regularly, that would mean that we can't put money away over a period of time for something.
yeah, that one should be,
So this is 9-6G.
Yeah. So
And
that,
what do we have
so,
to do?
so what this says here is that the Board of Finance can't, after 36 months of expensed funds, basically goes back to the general fund. That's not what we do in practice, because we will regularly draw out long capital things. So Tim, what do we want to say
Jim
about that?
wanted-
At our discretion, or how do you
talked
want
to
to?
Jim today, he wanted 10 years, but then you'd have to make a bunch of other changes. Right now in here, it's in other
Is this
places,
something
so
that
you
if
could
we're-
make it 60 to match the 5 years.
If we're
Can we
not,
make it at our discretion?
Can we pass that along to the next?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if we're already
Violated?
violating
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
you know,
It's another
Another
violation.
year. or
If it's
two.
gonna interface with other sections.
But it's something that requires a little more discussion and
Yeah.
a little more thought on it, and I think you run the risk too, if you put that in there, people really say, this is really about money, it's not about anything else, and so deal with these time sensitive and,
I'm cool if it kicks back to us, so.
hey, you came, you interrupted,
And
so.
Lynn was the one that brought it
Listen, we've
up.
been violating it for 20 years,
I don't wanna
30
hear
years.
In a good
No,
way,
Jim,
we're
you
You're
do
doing,
saving
that's
money.
right, you're doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can fix it in the next go-around,
Well,
but it's a
violating
little more
just-
complicated to explain to
We'll fix,
people.
because I think that it interfaces with other sections.
Yeah.
So I
It
think,
does.
my thought is keep it to the next,
I don't
Well,
think anybody's gonna
there's
disagree.
long-term
Yeah, if I'm
need to sell
violating
it.
you, it doesn't violate.
I guess
So
my
if
my
I'm
bigger
violating,
question
so do you.
is, how do you define, it's expiring non-recurring expense funds shall not lapse until the purpose for which appropriation was made. I mean, if you're paying in partial payments, is that lapsing or is that not
No, That's
lapsing?
like encumbered then, right, so.
It's already encumbered, but that's not lapsing.
No, but let's say you put in $100,000 a year for 10 years for a new
Turf
roof.
field.
Right.
And you don't go ahead and get a PO for it until year
Right,
9.
that
That would
would be
lapse.
that would be the problem.
Right.
that clearly lapses.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a long-term encumbrance that we do with known things. So, yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, I think you're right to.
But it says shall lapse though without any expenditure from or encumbrance of the appropriation. So if you've encumbered the appropriation,
It's
seems
an
they're okay.
appropriation by definition,
Yeah.
it's encumbered.
Yeah,
But it's bizarre language and we should,
yeah,
well, because there's something else in here we're not gonna fix that we know is illegal, which are term limits.
But I'd like
So-
to note, the note about that we could, in the meantime, be lobbying our legislators to change that. 'cause
yeah,
that should
but
be-
I would not mess with term
Yeah.
limits in a simple, let me
Wanna
explain
get
why I
this
put
voted
it,
down?
I,
Yeah,
yeah, that's exactly right, no, I
explained-
explained to Ray, I did the note, it was more to cover my area, because, I just wanna
I'd
make
like
sure
to-
that, because I think it's, like recall is illegal, I argue the case at the Supreme Court, the same argument would probably apply to term limits. And I thought
This is only for elected boards.
elected, not appointed, but elected boards and elected officials. I don't think it's legal, I don't think there's an express grant of authority that allows you to do it. It's in your charter. I gave an opinion in another community, and the mayor and the whole city council were wiped out, even though they pulled it back. They originally put it in the charter, then they gave it, then they left it in the charter, but the die was cast, and there was a very emotional response, and they were all thrown out of office. I think it's important to understand, I think it's limited. I think if somebody were to challenge you, you'd probably lose on it, and that's my reason for doing it was, and maybe when we look at it next year, we can decide we want to put a note in the charter, or just, it's part of the record, you've been told by somebody that it's problematic, so if somebody challenges it, don't be surprised.
There are certain things that attract attention and attract challenges.
This would be one.
No, term limits don't, not in this town, I don't see that term limits attract a challenge. What attracts a challenge is trying to fire somebody.
Okay. All right, there you go.
And that's why we go to four-year first selectman and elected, appointed.
Going to the
Boards are
longer
elected
terms,
for 4 years.
the four-year term issue in some towns is a big deal. Others, it hasn't been.
Well, the finance, board of ed, that's
Yeah.
4-year terms.
Yeah.
I think-
So it won't be a big deal.
I think you, some of the term limits are only recently put into the charter. I think you run a bigger risk of people who remember when they were put in, coming out and saying,
That's why
we shouldn't
I'm
screw
not
around with
advocating,
that.
I wanted to explain why I
Yes, yes.
framed it, and
No, it
I
makes
understand the
sense.
political implications.
The other thing we agreed on was the gender term. Are you fine with first select person?
You can call me whatever you want, no. This is like, you were very
Is
upset
that,
about that.
is that?
If we start getting
That's,
into
yeah,
that,
language.
Because that was
if-
one of the things.
no, we did, but if we start, because what I was gonna say to you is, we're gonna forget about this red line right now.
Yes.
Because if we do gender, it's gonna affect the whole thing, and then you have a big expense for publication.
That's
If we
what you
have
do.
4 or 5 discrete things,
Yeah.
your publication is cheaper.
Yeah. If you'd have to print
And we'll
the
deal with this
whole
later.
charter.
So when you come back, when I give you the next turnaround, a lot of stuff that's in here.
You guys better
go.
all stay on and keep working on this. We
So,
agree to
you
this.
know, but you're gonna have to open it up again, and if people want, if there are some people who wanna come on, I think all of us are willing to continue to stay, but there may be other people who wanna
Yeah.
come on, which is all right, that's the process.
Is that true? They have to reopen
Do we
the
have
whole
to reopen?
process?
I don't
We
know
have
why,
to-
I mean,
No, I don't.
I know what your local
You
procedures
just
are, I don't know why.
say they're continuing to be seated. That was.
I think you could say that because of these issues, we've decided to bifurcate the process, and we're gonna reappoint the same group. There's no law that says you have to advertise for the new
Right.
members.
It's, you
If
know.
it's your
And in
tradition,
fairness, if someone does want to step off, this isn't
Yeah,
like we're
yeah,
gonna
then we
find you
would
in your homes.
advertise.
yeah. But what you do is you end up, what you're gonna do is, it's a two-step process, as you may recall. You will create the commission, and then within 30 days, you appoint the commission. So, you can probably do it the same night if you want, but, you know, I'll talk to Brian, and he'll talk to you, or, on how to do that. So,
I think we
Are there any
should.
other-
Go ahead, go.
Just one, do we want to add the elimination of the constable positions?
I wouldn't do that.
I don't do it
No,
yet, don't do it yet.
People love.
Strangely, that'll be a
People
lightning
love
rod.
the
Yeah.
constables.
that's another
You
one,
think so?
constables.
Constables?
Oh.
Yeah.
I
They do
think
nothing,
they're-
it's nothing.
I think they're a springboard
nothing.
for future political office, and people like having them
Maybe,
there.
maybe
make signs.
justice of the peace, I don't think constables. People, they just do it to fill it.
Next time.
You'd be surprised, Ray. Let me tell you, in New Britain, we had a veterans commission,
Leave it, yeah.
We had a Veterans Commission, and they had, the membership went back to the Spanish-American War. So this is 1990, so you were within 100 years of the Spanish-American War back in the 1990s, but there was no one. There was nobody in New Britain. So I said, why don't you just take it out of the charter and make it an ordinance? The veterans went, it was insane. And you couldn't, and now I'm telling you, there's no one from World War I. My father's dead from World War II, and most of the people from World War II are gone. When you start naming wars that people should represent on your commission.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, it was, all hell broke loose when we tried to change it. So you never know what's going to,
Constables are a weird thing in this town.
yeah, you never know.
So it sounds like we got four issues. One is,
Total of 9.
you got a
four-year
I got a
term,
list of 9
you got the
issues.
two,
hold on, go ahead.
the four-year term, the 2 elected positions, the hiring process issue,
Right. Which
and
is
then the
subsumed
fourth
within
thing would be all those board and commission adding
alternates.
alternates and changing
Yeah.
composition and things like that.
Does that add up to 9, David, or do you
Yes.
have other, yes, it does, see, there you go. So we have 4, we're trying to, we have those issues.
I'm gonna try not to make it 9.
No, I know,
Yeah.
I
I think
understand.
Are
that's
you
it.
good with it?
But I just want to
I'm
make
surprised,
sure we're on
yeah,
the same
I-
sheet of paper.
I didn't think this is where we'd end up, but I feel okay with it.
No, same here.
All
I
right.
didn't think we'd end up here either, but I'm okay with it knowing that it isn't gonna have to start from square one
Yeah.
after this.
So what I'm going to say is this, I will draft, I will send documents to both of you, to the 2 bodies. Because before you vote it out, I wanna make sure they're okay with what you're voting out.
We don't have time.
And then you have a public hearing, then it goes to them, and you'll meet the same night as your public hearing to send it over to the Board of Selectmen. They will then have to have their meeting and a public hearing to follow it. And after their public hearing, they act on it, and presumably if they approve your report, your draft report, it's technically a draft report, then it's approved as a final report. They would then approve the questions and get it on. So all this has gotta be done between now and sometime in mid-August. So everybody needs to be ready.
Can our public hearing be on the same night we approve it? or do
You
we have to
could,
separate?
you have to make a political judgment. I've always said to people, even if you're trying to do something simple, and some of these things may have some public response to it, if you do it the same night of a public hearing, it kind of shows disrespect
Yeah, because
to the
then you don't
public,
have to.
Exactly.
is my view.
Okay,
Yeah, my
that makes
suggestion-
sense.
So I
Even
would,
if we have a special.
I would have a
selectmen's
meeting the next day.
after. Okay.
next day,
All right.
or the beginning of the next week.
Ray, what do you think about having another meeting,
That- but-
having another meeting before, you know,
Oh,
before?
So I think the suggestion is being made that Steve is going to do whatever drafting he has to do with with the explanations in those 4 or 9 areas, and then we are going to meet after that. Go ahead.
We'll have a special meeting when it's done.
Yeah, I would have a special public hearing and then a special meeting right
No, for
after.
us to,
Yes.
I mean, from you,
For you, yeah.
when
And we
you
can
give
look at all these.
some of the information, we can meet.
I don't think we wanna wait 2 weeks.
No.
So I think we may wanna try to meet on this,
Yeah, we'll have a special meeting.
have a special meeting, but also we should think about the night you wanna do your public hearing. Let's get that, because you have to do a public hearing.
Yeah, we need a venue.
So you're gonna have three meetings that we have to knock out in a very short order.
I'd be okay. I agree with Danielle.
So, you know something, you come from far away, give me dates, go back when, or if you can do it, if you can give the dates tonight, we're
Yeah, I have-
more flexible than
I'm
you.
doing 3 I've got all my dates right
What is your
here.
Okay.
availability to have a public meeting?
So we're just saying, so
So the next meeting,
about oversharing for the public events holiday schedule. But there's a time frame in early August when we'd have a harder time meeting with the 3 of us, so if we could either kind of fast track it to before that or after the 15th of August.
Well, if we have a special
can't do
meeting,
that.
we can
Can't be out.
get it to you.
So this is the 11th, so we're right now at the 11th, your next meeting is the 23rd. Let's see what we
Could you
can,
guys meet sooner than the 23rd? Could you
Yeah.
just change that?
Right.
Yeah,
A
so-
Special meeting, I have to post,
so next week,
you have to post a special meeting.
Don't forget about our town meeting on the 22nd, people.
Sure, I got the town meeting on the 22nd.
Try to cram as much in as possible.
On the 24th.
the 16th,
I submit every, I've sent
When's the 16th, is that?
It's
That's
kind of
Tuesday.
dependent on how quick, how much time you need.
Tuesday?
next Tuesday?
Let me just double check it, make sure I have nothing else that's not in my charters.
You wanna call back tomorrow?
Hey, let's do it right now.
Okay.
Let's, no, I really think it's important to,
No, that's good.
and then we'll talk to the, okay, so the 16th. Yeah, I can do the 16th, so let's,
Which is 7 days, no, the 16th was Tuesday?
next Tuesday.
Okay. 7, 16.
So at that meeting, we would vote out a proposed draft report. All the things we talked about tonight, that's next Tuesday, this commission.
Okay.
Then what you want to do is we want to have a public hearing. And so then when would you want to do your public hearings? Let me put
Is
this-
that their public hearing or?
Their public hearings, then you're going to have one too. So let's take a look at this. So we're looking at the 16th for Stonington. Charter revision, 6 o'clock. Not 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, Steve. Yes, there we go.
So is like the high school available in places like that, or?
It's not available very much because they're undergoing work, but we can,
What about the Pawcatuck Middle
Yeah,
School?
Mass isn't gonna be available.
no, they're moving, everything.
What about the police station?
Yeah, and we can also look, so like, I'm just trying to look at like, it might be a little much. What day were you guys thinking about for the public hearing, for your public hearing?
I don't
Oh,
need to
no.
be at your public hearing.
I'm sorry?
I don't need to be at your public hearing
I
unless,
see.
so,
If you're-
so why don't you just do it 2 nights later? Can you do it next Thursday? Or is that too tight for the public?
The 18th?
The 18th?
Tell me,
I'm in Salem that night.
Don't we have like a
select.
notice period for public hearings?
24 hours.
That's it? That's
Yeah.
all we have to do?
Yeah, I wanna give a
For
little
town
time.
meeting, we
Select,
have a longer.
yeah, I'd like to give people,
But I think if you set it tonight, you can just tell the public.
Tell them now.
If we made it on the 25th, the night of
Okay.
our commission
Better
meeting,
start knocking on doors.
so we have a town meeting, and right afterwards, we can go into committee.
yep. Okay, so tell me when the public hearing should be.
I'd
So-
make it that Thursday.
Make it that Thursday.
The faster we can
18th.
get it off,
We make it
get
the
it out of
18th.
here to them,
7,
the
18.
better shot
But
we
you
have
guys
here.
would work with Derek to maybe post it like tomorrow so that people can see the public hearing is coming up.
Exactly.
Just, I'm not gonna hold it up. I have planning and zoning on Tuesday of next week, so you'll just have to find someone. I can be there on the 18th though.
Yeah, or you guys take your own notes for, I mean,
I mean,
I'm in the same boat as Derek.
for the 16th?
I don't know if I should mention that now or.
I
Yeah, that's good to mention.
just record planning and zoning as well, so.
What time is,
What time is planning and zoning?
7 o'clock.
could you guys do like a 5 o'clock?
Or 4 o'clock or whatever, I mean, I'll do whatever we gotta do.
No, for their meeting.
Four.
their
We could
I'm
go
gonna tell you,
Wanna go 4?
when will you be able to get the draft to us?
I'll work on it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Although I've got,
I think it's more important for like, to have it televised if you, just because
Yeah.
you've been televising, I want it to look like, so could you do earlier or is that too long of a day for you?
No, I could do it earlier. This is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Where are you guys that Tuesday? Where do they meet?
Are they still at the middle school? Or, yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking, but it may be changing now.
Wasn't
I
it
don't know. When the change is happening.
For the 22nd, but maybe they aren't moving until the 22nd. So I don't know when they're doing the moving
So
process.
it's
We can
probably
find
still
out,
at the middle
yeah.
school then?
Because maybe we can just go there ahead of time.
Mystic
to
As
make
of
it
now,
easier
it
for
still
you.
says
If
40
we went to
but you
Mystic
can
Middle
change it.
School before, is it Mystic Middle? Or what do they call it now?
Stonington Middle.
Stonington?
Maybe in the gym, it's hot.
No, it's 204 Miss
We could
Tuxet,
help
that's what
confirm the
it is.
location, but you guys could potentially do the 16th at what time did you say? So I'll help look at the
I'll do
location.
whatever we have to do.
What?
I'll
So-
do whatever.
Can you give us dates tomorrow?
Yeah, but you guys, let's talk right now, just so we have the 16th anytime after between 4 or 5.
Yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
okay
Wait,
for
the
that.
planning and zoning's at
I'll
7.
just have to make sure I get stuff out to you over the weekend and post it on
So
Monday.
if the 16th, if we find a place for you guys to meet at either 4 or 5, we'll try and confirm that tomorrow. Then when did you want to have your public hearing?
The 18th.
The 18th, where, and that should be 7
police-
PM
the
typically, or
police-
what?
I think the police station, if we can get in there, because it's not,
Meets on the 16th, but what time do they meet? 5 o'clock or 6?
That,
At the police station.
who meets there?
How many
The
people do we
Flint
think would
they
come to
have
a town
them,
meeting
it's the
for
following week,
this charter change?
because I'm
Well,
going to
let's
it.
have enough room.
That's what I'm
Not
thinking.
many.
Oh, this
Size-
Not many.
You don't think so?
Yeah, the 16th,
Okay.
that's fine. They
Yeah,
just
we're
need
gonna
your
find out.
16th.
Oh, okay.
It's the the public hearing on the 18th.
Oh, the public hearing.
So the 18th, what time do you guys want, if we can,
Well, that's gotta be sensitive to the public, and I would say that should be 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, 18th, 7 PM? We'll see if we can find you guys a good location, either.
And I will not be there, I'll be in Salem that evening, but you don't need me for your public hearing.
We might have to meet in Salem, it's tight here.
Okay.
And
Has a
then,
nice meeting hall.
and then we have to meet, is that the next thing, and have a public hearing?
So then, we then have to, after the public hearing, meet to vote out your draft report. So let's get that date in here.
Can that be, you're saying the same day as the public hearing? or-
Right, that like we do the budget.
They could.
So then you still have our public hearing,
Then you
we'll have
still need-
another chance.
You need to have your meeting, then a public hearing, and then act, I mean, you can actually do your public hearing,
The same as our meeting, right?
you could if you want.
But then we don't
But then-
decide on it until
Yeah.
after.
So what I would do is maybe have a,
That would,
yeah, because you have to act within 15 days of your public hearing, we're not gonna use 15 days. So you could then, once it comes out from them, so let's decide when your last meeting is going to be.
You could do it before the 24th, because we already have a meeting on the 24th, so that could be,
we could do a public hearing
Hearing.
and our meeting then, and then just
and then
I-
book a
decide with a special meeting.
I suggest we do it on that Thursday night, the 18th. Yeah, after,
Oh, that's what we're gonna do, yeah, that's our hearing.
I mean, right after the hearing.
yeah,
That we do what, kick it over to them?
yes.
Yeah, we're gonna, we should decide that night.
That doesn't take a long.
All right, then I'll have to come out, then I'm gonna go try to get here, I'm gonna be in Salem, they may not need me
Yeah,
for the whole night.
why
It could
would
be
we,
virtual
why would
meeting?
we need you to vote it out?
Well, just in case you have language changes.
Okay,
Well, you can just tell me what they are.
yeah, really?
All right, so you're gonna have the public hearing and meeting on the 18th, then you kick it over to the Board of Selectmen. And so when's the Board of Selectmen?
July 24th, so we could potentially make that, what we accept what you guys, can that be our public hearing?
And then we need
And then we have a
a
special meeting after to reflect in case the public does file
Well,
their last
they have to
chance.
accept it first.
What you wanna, well, it goes to the town clerk. The charter goes to the town clerk that gives the town, the charter under the statute. And then it goes to the Board of Selectmen. They will meet that night, they'll have a public hearing. And what we could do, because I'd like to be there to be helpful to you, is after the public hearing, not an action night, but at least a review of everything. And then you convene a meeting to accept the final report. Because presumably, unless the members of the public, between these two public hearings, come in with some radical changes
Yeah.
in these
Really
documents,
persuasive argument.
we're
Yeah.
hoping that this will be a relatively,
Two questions. What is the process for a public hearing? I mean, a public hearing is, as I understand it, is we listen to the public, we don't do any comments. Can we spar with them? I mean, can we give them, no, can we?
I mean,
whatever you
I
want.
don't recommend it as a rule,
Yeah.
but you could certainly.
My
go back
concern,
and
my
forth.
concern is this, which is part of my second question, how much of an explanation is given in the final report? Because there are some people who are gonna say, well, why don't you do, town manager? Or why are you only doing these things?
You
If
can
we're gonna
say-
deliberate after to kick it out, we can discuss it then.
You'll have a transmittal letter that will explain why you're doing these things and that you've asked the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen is gonna bifurcate the process so we can address a whole range of
I
other
just
issues.
wanna make sure,
Yeah.
so it makes it easier for us to present it. I mean, I have no problem presenting it, but I would like to anticipate some of what those questions are going to be, so we can put that in.
Can't we just, when we present it, can't you present that these are the only areas in which they can discuss? Or can they discuss everything? Are they
No,
only
no.
discussing the changes?
At that night, they're only gonna be discussing the changes that are recommended.
Right. So-
They could come in and say, we think you should think about this as well, and what you can say to them at that point is that we're doing a truncated process
This isn't your last
to,
shot.
because there are things that are affecting in the next election cycle that these impact. We're gonna be coming back in September or October, and we'll be happy to look at those issues when we come back. That would be the way to address it.
We can do it like we do the Board of Finance, because what happens is we have a hearing, and once we've closed the hearing, we go into deliberations
Yeah.
when we decide what to do based on what we've heard,
Yes.
right?
We do that a lot
So,
for board
yeah, everybody
meetings,
does.
For non-controversial
Yeah,
things.
I wouldn't engage the public, you know.
Right, I understand.
Yeah,
I used the wrong word, and it wasn't engaging, but I wanna be able to have some answers for some
Then they gotta stay
obvious
for the
questions.
deliberations.
Yeah, yeah.
That's when,
Well, I'd also, I mean, I don't think you want to cut them off if they go to something that
It's gonna be
had been
3 people there.
submitted.
yeah.
You just say that we are going to take those up later. You
Yeah.
know, we only would like you to address the issues that we have before you.
Yeah.
And
That's a good-
hopefully,
that's a good
so
response.
we're not just
That's a good,
ignoring them or making them
That's a good
angry. You don't
response.
want
We
to
can make
make
a
them angry.
preface, good public comment with that.
Yeah, 'cause
I don't, we had 7
Right.
people
And
at
the
the
chair-
first public
Right.
hearing. I don't expect we're gonna have
And that the
much more.
chairman can keep reminding people if they get away from it.
Right, and that's
And I
exactly,
think if you make that announcement at the very beginning, that we're here to talk about these items that are
Yes.
on our
they're time
recommendations.
sensitive, yeah.
So you're going
The reason
to,
we're doing, yeah.
we're gonna meet next Tuesday, we're gonna have a public hearing on the 18th, and then you will kick it from that meeting, that's where you're gonna vote it out after that meeting. We'll kick it over to the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen will meet on the 24th, and have a public hearing on the 24th, and a meeting.
Yeah, we're also seeing our ethics commission, planning and zoning, and then now the charter on the 24th.
It's okay.
Um,
I'd rather have a long meeting.
And then, when would you then act on it?
We're saying potentially because of this option that we're saying we're gonna reconstitute the board, we might feel comfortable just doing exactly what they're doing, deliberating right after and taking action. But if people come and share feedback that we had thought of or some new really good ideas, we might wanna pause and then, so we have that whole next week where we could do it before Ben leaves. Yeah.
So then for the 24th, if you're gonna act on it, I presume we're gonna wanna do the questions that night as well.
Okay, because is that how it works?
No, you could do the questions, you'll have time to do them in August if you're gonna be meeting in August, to give us time to think about what the
Like
questions
how
are.
they'll appear on the ballot, yeah, towards, I
Yeah,
guess
but
if we
but if we
could,
know,
it'd be better.
what the issues are, we should be able to knock out the questions
Okay,
pretty
if you
easily.
could,
Won't we have a draft of that?
I'll draft it for you, that's what
yeah,
I'm
that's what,
asking.
yeah.
We need
it
to have
would
a
be
draft,
helpful.
Yeah.
so
Yeah, you're gonna have a draft of the document, I mean,
Yeah.
A draft of the
I'll have
questions.
you'll get it when we get it, and then if we make any
I think
modifications, you'll get
if we
those.
could get a draft of the questions before the 24th, it would be helpful.
Well, I'll definitely have that.
Fine.
All right, I'll definitely have that. In fact, what we'll do is maybe in the transmittal letter, even though it's not their job, we could make it part of their transmittal. These are the questions we recommend
Yeah.
based on the work we've done.
Because
in this
you have
process.
to say as far as
But
what
we'll
the
talk
questions
about
are.
it. We'll-
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you.
Again, this is a mediated
And
process.
then this would be helpful, because then I think you guys, if you don't mind, if this all moves forward the way we're planning, because everything's not officially due right till the end of August, you could maybe work on, I think Westerly did it, I think Eastline did it, like, they have like a booklet that kind of explained, you know, each change or the reason, the rationale, and it was just a helpful, like,
That's the explanatory text. I
oh,
talked about.
explanatory, there you go.
And that is something the town could spend money on. The town could pay for that. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
We got no money left.
No, but the point is, it's not a
all went to the
political fundraising thing, because it's not an advocacy document.
Yeah.
It will explain in objective terms what you did,
Okay.
all
And
right?
is that something the Charter Commission would normally work on?
Town clerk.
Oh, I don't write it. I don't-
Well, they usually hire me to do it with you, because
And then,
it's a document, that you would authorize it,
Yes.
the Board of Selectmen, and the town clerk would then.
I'm happy to write it.
We get it done, it's
And
easy
then,
enough to do.
Steve, in your experience, has the Elections Division Secretary of State ever declined a question? Because it has to be submitted to me by the 5th of September, and then I have till the 20th to submit it to them for their approval to appear on the ballot.
None any of the questions I've read,
Okay.
but they tend not to. There was a lot of controversy this year in the General Assembly about questions. In my Stanford charter, there was a big war between the Board of Reps and the mayor last year. And then in New Britain, there were some issues, and they were trying to get a piece of legislation through, and thank God they did not, that would have required a separate question for every item in the charter.
Jesus.
And
500
there's no
pages
ballot,
long.
there's no ballot that's long enough to do that. And it almost passed. It made it to the end of the legislative session, they finally killed it. I was able to get the Senate to kill the darn thing, myself and a few other people were working on it, so, no, I've never had that problem. I'll draft them and, you know, they're gonna be relatively, they're relatively straightforward.
So I understand, where is our meeting gonna be on Tuesday, next Tuesday?
We have to figure that out.
I'm gonna figure it out for you.
I'll talk to you tomorrow then.
Tuesday.
And by me, I mean, or
Derek,
me.
Well, you have my,
I'm gonna try and do it
Sorry?
without her
And
knowing.
you'll be on
Yeah.
it, because we have to print the minutes.
you have my
Danielle,
cell
what
phone
time is the
number?
meeting on the 24th?
Our meeting on the
Yes.
24th is 5:30.
I thought so, but I
very
just
terrible
wanted to
time
make
of
sure.
5:30.
You're good.
Not myself.
Do you want us, anybody there for your meeting? For any of this?
Is that fine, like legally, ethically, like, yeah, right?
Or just want Ray to come?
I think at
or-
least one representative from the charter commission would be good.
What day is
We
that?
could,
Yeah.
The
questions
23rd?
could channel through us to them.
24th.
24th.
To them.
I'm not doing anything with them because I'm very.
So we're
nervous
going
about
seven
that.
sixteen, 7/18,
Derek,
7/24, and they're probably gonna act on it that night.
Okay. So you can
All right.
do it either, but-
No, no. I mean-
And at some point, do we, can we go to the, what can we as a committee do to go and talk to people? Talk to
You
town
can do
committees,
it,
talk to,
Here's where it's gonna get a little goofy. What's that?
Is there a quiet period before a public hearing?
What do you mean quiet period?
Planning and zoning, you know, we were always told we couldn't discuss stuff. Like after we have
That's
the
a
public
statutory,
hearing.
that's statutory, they're.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, but I don't know, yeah.
I don't know if this is something that any of us wanna do, I'm just raising it to see if it's something we should do and if we can do.
Here's where it gets a little, you're talking about advocating for the
Yeah.
November passage?
I am.
Normally, what I recommend to commissioners, because you're out of business,
Mhm.
form a PAC, raise some money, get yes signs out, make sure that you advocate for your document, because at that point, you're no longer on the commission. I've never had a situation where the commission is recommissioned during the election cycle. So you're gonna be a former commission and a new commission. I would talk to I'll talk to the elections commission about that and see what the issues would be. But normally, I would say that you would put a PAC together to make sure that, that your point of view and the work you've done is being supported. I've never had a situation where they just jumped on top of, where the process is going to jump on another process.
I feel like to be very unique there.
It's unique and legal and appropriate, but I've never had it
Right.
where you will be new commissioners on a new body.
Right.
I don't think
Forget
it should.
forget for a second about advocating, just going and giving,
Oh, you can speak.
telling.
Go to the Kiwanis Club, go to the, the yacht club, wherever people are congregating, I mean, don't you have yacht clubs in Stonington? Or whatever.
Go to the transfer station, that's all you have to do.
Transfer station, or the bodegos, I mean,
Those we don't have.
Okay, but whatever the case may be, so you can do that. All right, I know what I have to do.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Let's, I'd entertain a motion that we adjourn.
I would, second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and you guys too.
It's a good, by the
We're
way,
adjourning, we're adjourning, we're good.
it's a great commission you put
Thank
together.
Oh, good, we like them, we'll keep them forever. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, very much.
Good luck to you.
Really,
Yeah.